On my birthday, I never knew what awaited me. It was a celebration that changed everything. You know how sometimes you get this weird feeling in your chest, like your heart knows something is off, even before your brain catches up? That was me. On the morning of my birthday, I woke up hoping, wishing, that maybe this year would be different. That maybe he'd remember. That he'd look at me the way he used to, like I mattered, like I was his person, not just someone who keeps the house running or makes sure the kids get everywhere on time. But what I got was silence. No happy birthday, no kiss on the forehead. Just the cold side of the bed and the sound of the shower running. Like it was any other day. And for some reason, I still held on to hope. Pathetic, right? I stared at my reflection, trying to convince myself to smile. It's okay, I whispered. He might have something planned. Maybe he's just pretending. Maybe it's a surprise. That hope, it clung to me like perfume I hadn't worn in years. Faint, but still there. But now, if I close my eyes and go back to that night, all I can hear is laughter echoing down the hallway, and me, locked in the bathroom, hands shaking, my back against the door, trying to breathe through tears I didn't see coming. It was supposed to be my special day, but it became the night that ripped open something I didn't even know was broken. The night I started questioning everything I thought I knew about my husband, my marriage, and myself. And what his best friend whispered to me that night. I still can't forget. I still don't know how I'm supposed to. You see, I didn't go looking for anything. I didn't dress up that night expecting to feel something I hadn't felt in years. I just wanted to be seen, noticed, loved, for one day, for my day. But what I got was something else entirely. Before I take you into what happened next, and trust me, you'll want to hear every second of it, so take a moment to hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell. Because here on Shocking Infidelity Saga, we share the real stories, the raw, messy, painfully human ones most people are too scared to admit out loud. And if you've ever felt invisible in your own relationship, if you've ever smiled through tears just to keep the peace, if you've ever wondered if you were the crazy one for needing more, then this story might just feel like yours too. Let's begin. I used to be the kind of woman who laughed without thinking, who danced barefoot in the kitchen while making dinner just because he was watching. He used to watch me. Now, I don't think he even sees me. I'm in my early 40s. We've been married for over 15 years. And lately, it's like I've become part of the background. Not loud enough to be heard. Not still enough to be missed. Aaron, my husband, he wasn't always like this. He used to call me his light. Now, he only lights up when he's talking about work or when he's around his friends. Especially Jason. Jason has been Aaron's best friend since college. They've been through everything together. Bachelor parties, work deals, even our wedding. Jason has always had this quiet presence. Not loud, not flashy like Aaron, but observant. Still, when he looks at you, he really looks at you. Lately, I've caught him watching me when I'm not looking. Not in a creepy way. In a curious way. Like he's trying to remember who I was before all this, or maybe he already knows. The house we live in, it's nothing fancy. Middle class. Suburban. White walls, beige carpets. Clean. Orderly. A house that says, we're doing okay. But inside, it feels like a museum. Like a place where things used to happen. Where memories used to be made. Now, it just holds echoes. Our kids are teenagers now. They've got their own lives. Phones glued to their hands. I talk, they nod. Sometimes I wonder if they even notice the tension between me and Aaron. Or maybe they're just used to it. There are pictures on the walls. Us on the beach. Smiling. Holding hands. I don't remember the last time we touched like that. Now, he barely brushes past me in the hallway. And when he laughs these days, it's louder when I'm not the one he's laughing with. He saves his warmth for other people. His clients. His friends. Jason. And that's what stings the most. Because sometimes, Jason remembers the things Aaron has forgotten. Like the time we had friends over and someone put on music. Jason walked up to me and said, "Isn't this that song you used to play on repeat in your garden?" Aaron didn't even flinch. Didn't even look up. I should have noticed the signs. The way Jason watched me. The way he listened. The way he'd linger just a second longer than necessary when handing me a glass. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. That I was just craving attention. But then I realized. Jason wasn't doing anything out of place. He was just being the way Aaron used to be. And that realization hit harder than I expected. Because I had spent so long convincing myself that I didn't need to be seen. That being invisible was just part of marriage. That this quiet sadness was normal. That the way he touched his phone more than he touched me was something every wife goes through. But it's not normal to feel forgotten. It's not normal to smile through birthdays you didn't plan. Or to wonder if your husband even knows what your favorite color is anymore. I started to feel like I was living with a man who knew about me, but didn't know me. And all the while, Jason was there. Always close enough to be polite. But distant enough to never be inappropriate. Until he wasn't. But we're not there yet. That night, my birthday, our home was decorated. Balloons. Streamers. Even a cake. I don't know who arranged it. I'd like to believe Aaron had something to do with it. But it felt staged. Last minute. Put together with more effort than heart. Like a box that needed to be checked. Wife's birthday. Done. He barely looked at me when I walked into the room. But Jason did. Jason looked at me like I was someone worth celebrating. And I think that was the moment I stopped pretending not to notice. I spent the rest of the morning trying not to care. Told myself it was fine. Told myself this is just how it is now. I didn't expect flowers. Or breakfast in bed. I knew better. Still, the silence was loud. Aaron left early. Didn't even look in my direction. Not a single word. Not even a happy birthday. I sat at the kitchen table alone, watching sunlight crawl across the floor, thinking maybe he'd text. Nothing. By noon, I gave up hoping. I started washing the dishes just to keep my hands busy, because if I stood still too long, the sadness crept in. That kind of slow, heavy sadness that settles behind your ribs and makes it hard to breathe. Then, around 12:30, my phone rang. Aaron. His voice was sharp, quick. Like he was squeezing me into his schedule. Be ready by 7. Don't ask questions. Dress nice. And then he hung up. No, I love you. No softness. But still, a flicker of hope. Maybe he had planned something. Maybe this was just his way, distant and cold on the outside, but maybe something warm underneath. Maybe. So I got ready. Slowly. Carefully. I picked a dress I hadn't worn in years. Soft blue, silky. The one he used to say made my eyes look like water. I looked in the mirror and forced a smile. A weak one, but it stayed. At exactly 7, I heard the knock at the door. When I opened it, I wasn't expecting what I saw. Friends. Smiling. Laughing. Holding wine and gift bags. And there, behind them, Jason. He wasn't smiling like the others. He just looked at me. His eyes moved from my dress to my face slowly. And when our eyes met, he nodded once. Subtle. Like he was saying, I see you. They poured champagne. The music started. Laughter bounced around the walls, but no one said it. No one said, Happy birthday. I stood there, glass in hand, surrounded by people who came to celebrate me, but no one remembered why they were there. Then Aaron clapped his hands together. All right, he said, grinning. Time for the surprise. He walked over and held up a blindfold. Come on. Don't ruin it. Just trust me. I hesitated. And he said it again, louder, more impatient this time. Trust me. So I let him tie it around my eyes. I felt their hands guiding me. Someone laughed. I heard Jason's voice, calm and close to my ear, just a few more steps. Then the night air hit me. Cool. Sweet. The sound of soft music playing. And then, they pulled the blindfold off. The backyard had been transformed. Fairy lights, candles, pillows laid out on the grass. A table filled with food. A cake, white frosting simple. And for a moment, I was touched. It was beautiful. It felt like someone had seen me, thought of me. But that feeling didn't last long. Because while everyone talked and toasted, Aaron drifted. He laughed louder with his friends than he ever did with me. He moved around the party like a host checking boxes. He barely looked at me. Didn't hold my hand. Didn't sit beside me. Jason did. He brought me a plate. Made sure I had a drink. Sat close, but not too close. He told me I looked beautiful. Quietly. Like it wasn't for anyone else to hear. And then he handed me a small box. I looked down at it. Simple wrapping, no card. Open it later, he said, his voice low. But I opened it right there. Inside was a necklace. Silver. Delicate. A single charm shaped like a leaf. I looked up at him. And he said, "You always said you loved leaves in the fall." I saw it and thought of you. Aaron hadn't even noticed. I stared at the necklace in my hand. Felt the weight of it. Not just the metal, but the meaning. Jason remembered. Jason knew. Later, a slow song started to play. I recognized it right away. It was the one I used to hum while cooking dinner back when we first moved in. I didn't even know people still played it. Jason walked over and held out his hand. I hesitated. He didn't say anything. Just looked at me like he'd wait forever if he had to. So I took his hand. We moved slow. Barely swaying. His hand rested gently on my back. Not too low. His breath was warm, steady. We didn't talk. Not at first. Then, just as the song began to fade, he leaned in, his lips close to my ear. And he whispered, "You deserve more than what he gives you." I froze. The words wrapped around me like a rope. Not tight, not choking, but undeniable. Real. And when I pulled back to look at him, he didn't apologize. He didn't take it back. He just looked at me. Like he'd said what needed to be said. I didn't know how to respond. So I didn't. I just stepped away. Walked to the edge of the yard, stared out into the dark. The necklace still clutched in my hand. Because in that moment, I realized someone had given me more in one whisper than my husband had in years. I sat in the bathroom after everyone sang and clapped and smiled like everything was perfect. I had cut the cake with a shaky hand. Smiled for the pictures. Let Aaron smear a little frosting on my cheek, even though it felt forced, like he remembered to play the part just in time. The moment I could slip away, I did. The bathroom light buzzed faintly overhead, and I locked the door behind me. I leaned against it. Slowly slid down to the floor. Dress wrinkling beneath me. Makeup starting to crack from the heat of my skin. And I cried, quietly at first. Then all at once. I didn't even know where the tears were coming from. I wasn't sad, at least not in a way I could explain. I was overwhelmed. Not by the celebration. Not by the people. But by him. By Jason. His words. That whisper. You deserve more than what he gives you. Why did that sentence touch me so deeply? Why did it feel like someone had finally said what I couldn't even admit to myself? Why did Jason's words echo louder in my chest than my own husband's voice? I stared at myself in the mirror. Mascara smudged. Eyes red. And all I could think was, how did I get here? There was a time when Aaron would leave love notes on the bathroom mirror. Silly doodles on Post-its. He'd tuck them into my purse, write, "Thinking of you," in the margins of receipts. We'd share glances across a crowded room, and I'd feel it in my stomach. That flutter. That spark. Now? Now, he looks at me like I'm furniture. Something solid. Present. But unremarkable. I know people grow apart. Life gets busy. Kids, work, bills, all of it. But somewhere along the way, we stopped reaching for each other. He used to ask how I was feeling. Now, he barely hears me when I speak. And Jason. He listened. He noticed. He remembered my favorite song. He noticed my dress. He brought me a gift, not out of obligation, but because he saw me. And that scared me. Because I wasn't supposed to feel this. Not for him. Not for anyone. I wasn't supposed to feel butterflies. Not this far into marriage. Not after all these years. Especially not because of another man. But I did. And it wasn't even a big moment. Wasn't some romantic movie scene. It was the quiet of it. The simplicity. The feeling of being seen when I'd spent so long fading into the background. I tried to tell myself it was just attention. That I was vulnerable. that anyone in my position would feel something. I tried to blame the wine, the music, the loneliness, but the truth was, it felt good. And then the guilt came. Thick, heavy, like a second skin I couldn't peel off. Because what did it mean, really? That a single whisper from Jason could unravel me more than all the years of silence from Aaron? That one moment of kindness could fill a hole I didn't even realize had hollowed out completely? I sat on that floor and I tried to collect myself. Tried to breathe through the knot in my chest. I told myself it didn't mean anything. That it was just a moment. A reaction. A fluke. But deep down, I knew better. Because something inside me had shifted. Subtly. Quietly. But undeniably. And I wasn't sure if I could go back to pretending anymore. I stayed in that bathroom longer than I should have. Wiped my face. Fixed my lipstick. Told myself to pull it together, to go back out there and finish the night like nothing had shifted inside me. When I stepped back out into the party, everything was louder. The music. The laughter. Aaron, he was holding a drink in one hand, arms slung over someone's shoulder, telling a story like he was the life of the night. His face flushed, eyes glossy. He didn't even notice I'd been gone. I walked past him. He didn't stop me. Didn't reach out. Didn't ask if I was okay. He was too busy laughing. And I realized in that moment, I could have disappeared and no one would have known. Except Jason. He caught my eye from across the yard. Just a glance. But it was enough. He saw me. Again. Later, after the cake was cut, after the drinks were poured and the guests started slipping out, the mess remained. Half-empty glasses. Wrinkled napkins. Candles flickering low. I started to clean up out of habit. No one offered to help. Except Jason. He stepped into the kitchen without a word. Started stacking plates. Rinsing glasses. We moved in silence, side by side. And then, our hands touched. Brief. Barely a second. But neither of us pulled away. It was innocent. But not really. I laughed. Softly. Not because something was funny, but because it felt good. Strange. Natural. Like for a moment, the weight on my chest had loosened just enough to let air in. Jason looked at me. Really looked. And then he said it. I miss that smile. I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say anything. Just kept drying the dishes, heart thudding too loud for the quiet around us. Then he glanced at the cooler and said, "We're low on ice. Want to come with me to get more?" I should have said no. I should have told him Aaron could go. But Aaron was passed out half asleep on the couch, his shirt untucked, one shoe off. He wouldn't have even noticed if I left for an hour. So I said yes. The ride was quiet at first. The kind of silence that hums with everything unsaid. Streetlights passed over us like waves, and I stared out the window, wondering what I looked like to him in that moment. Then Jason spoke. "I've watched you, he said. Not in a creepy way. Just, I've seen how you've changed." I didn't speak. He continued. "You don't laugh like you used to. You barely talk when we're all together. You used to be the one who lit up a room." His voice dropped a little. "You don't shine anymore. And I know it's not your fault." I felt my throat tighten. I turned to him, and our eyes met. It was a look too honest to hold for long. So I looked away. The air in the car felt heavier than it should have. Like even the silence had weight. Neither of us said anything for a while. Just sat in that tension. Not uncomfortable, just charged. Like something was waiting. Then, without warning, Jason pulled the car over. The street was quiet. Empty. Just the two of us. He put the car in park. Turned off the engine. And then turned to me. "If I kissed you right now," he said softly, "would you stop me?" I didn't breathe. Didn't move. Didn't answer. Because I didn't know what scared me more, the question itself. Or the fact that part of me didn't want to stop him. I didn't stop him. I didn't nod. Didn't move toward him. But I didn't move away either. He waited, just a moment longer, like he was giving me one last chance to change my mind. And when I didn't, he leaned in. Slow, gentle, careful. Our lips met, soft and unsure. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't hungry. It wasn't even about desire. It was quiet, almost still, like we were both holding our breath inside a moment that neither of us could name. And I felt it, that warmth, deep and aching. The kind that doesn't come from the touch, but from being seen, from being chosen. His hand rested lightly on the side of my face. Not gripping, not pulling, just holding. Like I was something fragile, something worth pausing for. And then we pulled away. The silence between us was louder than the kiss. Not awkward, just full. Full of everything we didn't say. I looked at him, and he looked at me. And I whispered, "We can't." My voice cracked a little. Not from guilt. Not even from shame. But from truth. From all the things I'd buried for so long finally clawing their way to the surface. "We can't," I said again. But I needed that more than I cared to admit. Jason didn't try to explain. Didn't try to take it back. He just nodded. And started the car again. The ride back felt different. Still quiet. But heavy with a new kind of knowing. When we pulled into the driveway, the lights in the house were still on. The party was long over. Only the faint flicker of a dying candle in the window. I stepped out of the car and Jason didn't follow. He didn't reach for me again. He just sat there, hands on the wheel, watching me go. I walked inside slowly. The house smelled like frosting and wine. Music still playing softly in the background. Glasses on the counter, plates in the sink. And Aaron, he was passed out on the couch. One arm slung over his chest. Mouth slightly open. I stood there for a long time, just watching him. Not with anger. Not even with disappointment. Just distance. He looked so far away. Even in the same room, he felt unreachable. Like someone I once knew. I didn't wake him. Didn't cover him with a blanket. Didn't even turn off the light. I just walked past him. Up the stairs. Into our bedroom. And when I shut the door behind me, I leaned against it and felt my whole body shake. Not because of what happened, but because of what it meant. Because for the first time in years, I had felt something. And it didn't come from the man I married. The next morning, my head was still spinning. Not from the wine. Not from the party. But from that kiss. That moment. I woke up before the sun came in through the blinds. Aaron was still snoring downstairs on the couch. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, wondering what kind of woman kisses her husband's best friend on her birthday. What kind of woman lets it happen? And then my phone buzzed. Just one message. From Jason. "I'm sorry. But I'm here." 7 words. That was all. But it hit me harder than I expected. Because in those 7 words, he said more than Aaron had in weeks. I stared at the message for a long time. Didn't reply. Didn't delete it. Just let it sit there, open, unread, alive. When Aaron finally came upstairs sometime mid-morning, he didn't say anything. Didn't ask how I slept. Didn't mention the party. Didn't even ask if I enjoyed my birthday. He just walked past me, grabbed some clothes, and went into the bathroom. And I stood in the hallway, watching the door close behind him, realizing how far apart we'd become. Not just emotionally, everything. We didn't touch. We didn't talk. We didn't even argue anymore. It wasn't anger. It was worse than that. It was nothing. And once you start living in silence, you start noticing every echo. I began to feel how hollow the marriage had become. Like a house with no furniture. Like a body without a heartbeat. Just something existing, but no longer alive. Jason didn't text again after that. Not right away. But he started showing up more. Little things. Casual excuses. He dropped off a tool Aaron had left at his place. Brought over a bottle of wine he said he didn't want to waste. Asked if I needed help moving a shelf Aaron had promised to fix months ago. Each time, it felt like he was trying to keep a line open. Trying not to cross it again, but not willing to walk away either. And I let him. I let him come. Let him stand in the kitchen. Let him ask how I was doing when no one else did. And the guilt grew louder inside me. Not because of what had happened, but because of how much I wanted it to happen again. I started avoiding Aaron's eyes. Not because I was afraid he knew, but because I couldn't lie to him with my face. Every time he looked at me, on the rare occasion that he did, I felt exposed. Like if he stared long enough, he'd see the flicker still burning under my skin. But he didn't look. Not really. He barely noticed. And that hurt more than anything. Because the guilt would have been easier if he cared. If he asked. If he got angry. But there was nothing. Just another layer of silence between us. And Jason. Jason was the only one who noticed the quiet and leaned in, instead of walking away from it. That's when I knew. Something had changed. Not just that night. Not just with Jason. Something inside me had shifted. And I wasn't sure it could be undone. Some nights I lie awake long after Aaron's fallen asleep beside me. I watch the shadows crawl across the ceiling. I listen to the rhythm of his breathing. And I ask myself the same question over and over again. Did I betray my vows? Or was I just reacting to years of being unseen? Because I don't feel like a cheater. I feel forgotten. I feel like someone who waited too long to be noticed, and when someone finally looked, really looked, I unraveled. I think about Jason's words constantly. You deserve more than what he gives you. It loops in my mind like a song I didn't ask to hear but can't stop humming. And then, the contrast. Aaron's silence. The silence that's lived between us for years now. Long before Jason. Long before the kiss. A silence I used to try and fill with effort. With patience. With excuses. Now, I just sit in it. I let it speak for both of us. Because it says enough. I started writing again. Not anything formal, just pieces of myself on paper. Little truths I can't say out loud. One night, I wrote in my journal, "Is emotional cheating worse than physical?" Because I think I gave my heart away that night. It didn't feel like a confession. It felt like a release. Like finally admitting what I had been too scared to say, even to myself. I haven't seen Jason again since that night in the car. He's kept his distance. Or maybe I have. I don't know who's pulling away, or who's holding back more. But I think about him. All the time. Not the kiss. Not even the tension. But the way he looked at me like I mattered. And it makes me wonder. Should I tell Aaron? Would he care? Would he even understand why it happened? Would he blame me, or himself? Or neither of us? There's no clear answer. Just more questions. More weight. I carry it in my chest, quiet and constant. Like a stone in my pocket. Always there. Always reminding me of what I did, and why. I don't know what comes next. I don't know if I'll ever see Jason again. Or if this will just live inside me as a moment that changed everything, without changing anything. But I keep coming back to one simple truth. A truth that lingers in every silent dinner. Every forced smile. Every untouched kiss goodnight. Is it wrong to want to be wanted? Have you ever felt more alone in a relationship than when you were single? Have you ever laid beside someone you once loved with your whole heart and felt like a ghost in your own bed? Because that's where I've found myself lately. Wrapped in silence, pretending everything's fine, going through the motions of a life that no longer fits. And I'm asking you, genuinely asking, am I the villain here? Or just someone who needed to feel again? I didn't go looking for it. I didn't wake up hoping for attention from someone who wasn't my husband. I didn't plan for a moment in a parked car to leave a mark I still carry. But it happened. And now I'm left holding this complicated truth that sometimes being wanted can feel like oxygen, even if it comes from the wrong person. So, have you ever been here? Have you ever found yourself in that blurry place between right and wrong, between loyalty and loneliness? Because I still don't know if what I did was unforgivable. Or simply human. I replay it all sometimes. Not the kiss. Not the message. But the quiet. The years of slow fading. The ache of being invisible. And I think maybe the worst kind of betrayal isn't the one done to you. It's the one that happens inside you. When you stop recognizing the version of yourself you swore you'd never become. When you realize the person you've become is someone you used to judge. But pain has a way of bending your lines. Of softening your boundaries. Of whispering, just this once, until it becomes a memory you can't erase. I don't have answers. I'm not proud. I'm not here to justify. I'm just being honest. So if you've ever felt this, if you've ever stood in the same emotional storm, wondering what's right and what's necessary, talk to me. Leave a comment. Tell me your truth. Or just tell me I'm not alone. And if this story moved something inside you, if it made you think about your own choices, your own silences, your own needs, please subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga. This is where the raw, real stories live. The ones most people are too scared to say out loud. Like, share, comment. I read every single word. Because somewhere out there, someone else needs to know they're not the only one feeling this way. And maybe, neither am I.